On Scary Stories channel, you're about to hear 3 dark, almost documentary-style stories. These are accounts of places that shouldn't exist, of systems no one admits are real, and of ordinary people who didn't break any rules, except one they didn't know about. There are no monsters in the usual sense. No jump scares. Only quiet disappearances, unexplained records, and events that sound less like fiction and more like reports that were never meant to be found. These stories don't ask you to believe them. They simply exist like the things they describe. This story will tell us about a man who spent his entire life near the Appalachian Mountains and believed fear was something meant for outsiders. About the night the forest spoke to him for the first time in his own language, and about a rule everyone there knows, but almost no one explains. I grew up where the Appalachian Mountains stopped being a destination and start being a boundary. They were just their dot outside the window, beyond the road, always watching. When you live like that long enough, you stop seeing the woods as dangerous. They become familiar, predictable, almost comforting. That's how people get hurt. In October of 2018, I decided to take a solo hike along an old trail that no longer appeared on maps. Locals still used it, or used to dot. It wasn't forbidden. It was just forgotten. I'd walked it before, plenty of times. I knew where it narrowed, where it dipped, where the trees grew too close together. I packed light. One night. No rush? By the time I reached the spot I planned to camp, the sun was already sinking behind the ridge. The light filtered through the trees in long, crooked lines like bars on the ground. That's when I noticed how quiet it was. No birds, no insects. Not even the usual distant wind. It wasn't silence. It was restraint. I set up camp anyway. People who aren't from there think the woods are loud at night. They expect constant noise. But the truth is worse. Sometimes the forest goes quiet because nothing wants to be heard. I was halfway through heating my food when I heard the whistle. Not sharp, not playful. Slow, controlled. 3 short notes. A pause. 1 long note. I didn't react at first. Wind can do strange things. Anyone who says otherwise hasn't spent enough time outside. Then it happened again. Same rhythm, same pitch. Too precise. I stood up and listened. The sound came from somewhere deeper in the trees, just beyond where the firelight died. I couldn't see anything past that edge. The darkness there felt thicker, like it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Without really thinking, I whistled back. The moment I did, something inside me knew I'd made a mistake. The response came immediately. Perfectly matched, only closer. My chest tightened. That was the moment I remembered the rule. Where I'm from, everyone knows it. Parents don't teach it. Rangers don't post it. You just grow up hearing it in pieces. If you hear something in the woods that sounds human, you don't respond. If it calls out to you, you keep your mouth shut. Because the woods don't echo voices, they repeat them. I told myself it was another camper, someone messing around. That lie lasted about 5 seconds. Then I heard footsteps. Not approaching. Circling. Slow steps just outside the firelight. Heavy enough to crush leaves, but wrong somehow. Like the person walking hadn't decided how they wanted to move yet. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it toward the sound. Nothing. Just trees. Then very calmly, very clearly, it whistled again. This time it came from directly behind me. I spun around so fast the world tilted. The fire popped loudly behind me, sending sparks into the air, but beyond its light there was nothing. No shape, no movement. Just rows of trees standing too close together. their trunks dark and uneven. I stayed frozen, listening. Nothing moved. No footsteps, no whistle, no wind. For a few seconds, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. That fear had filled in the gaps where logic should have been. Then I heard breathing. Not mine. It was slow, careful, like whoever or whatever was making the sound was trying to control it. The breathing came from the same place the whistle had, somewhere behind me, just past the edge of the firelight. Close enough that I should have seen something. I didn't turn around again. Instead, I stared into the flames and listened. That's when the footsteps started moving again, not circling this time. They were copying me. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other. A moment later, the sound in the woods did the same. I took a single step backward. Leaves crunched behind me, perfectly timed. My heart started hammering in my chest, not because I thought I was about to be attacked, but because something out there was paying attention in a way that felt intimate, curious. Studying. I cleared my throat, meaning to speak, then stopped. Myself. The rule echoed in my head. Don't respond. Don't acknowledge it. That's when it spoke. Not my name. Not yet. Just a sound. A low, broken attempt at a human noise. Like someone practicing how to form a word without knowing what it meant. The sound crawled under my skin. It wasn't coming from a single direction anymore. It was moving. Fast. I grabbed my flashlight again and swept it across the tree line. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating bark, branches, patches of dead leaves. Still nothing, but the breathing got closer. I could hear it clearly now. Wet, heavy, too deep to belong to someone standing upright. I took a step back and nearly tripped over my pack. The moment I stumbled, it stumbled too. That's when I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. Whatever was out there couldn't see me the way I saw it. It was using sound. I slowly, carefully reached down and picked up a small rock from the ground. Then I tossed it to my left. It hit a tree and rolled through the leaves. Immediately, the breathing and footsteps shifted toward the sound. Not cautiously, eagerly, branches snapped. Leaves tore apart. Something moved through the woods with sudden confidence, no longer testing its steps. I didn't wait to see what would happen. I backed away from the fire, keeping my movements slow, controlled. The light felt like the only thing keeping whatever it was from stepping closer. That's when it whistled again. Not the same pattern this time. It changed. It whistled the way I had, imperfect, slightly off-key. Exactly the way I always did when I wasn't thinking about it. The sound made my stomach turn. Because it wasn't copying the forest, it was copying me. I started moving toward the trail, careful not to make sudden noises. Every step felt wrong, like the ground itself was trying to shift under my feet. Behind me, something followed, not rushing. Learning. The trail should have been obvious. I'd walked it enough times to know where it cut through the trees. But in the dark, everything looked wrong. The trees leaned in at odd angles. The path felt narrower than it should have been. Then I heard it. My footsteps ahead of me. I stopped dead. The sound stopped too. I stood there, barely breathing, my ears ringing with silence. Then, from somewhere deeper down the trail, I heard myself walk again. Same pace, same rhythm, same weight. That's when it finally said my name. Clear, calm, confident, spoken in my own voice. And before I could stop myself, I answered. The moment the word left my mouth, the forest reacted. Not violently, not loudly. It shifted. The air around me felt heavier, like I'd stepped into deeper water. Sound dulled. My ears popped, and for a split second, everything felt very far away. Then the thing that sounded like me moved. Fast. I turned and ran. I didn't think. I didn't choose a direction. My body took over, pushing me down the trail. My feet slamming into dirt and roots as branches tore at my arms. Behind me, something followed, not crashing, not charging. Running the way a person does when they know exactly how fast they need to go. I risked a glance over my shoulder. I wish I hadn't. There was no shape I could focus on. No clear outline, just absence. A darker section of darkness, where the trees seemed to bend away like they didn't want to touch it. And inside that absence, movement. I ran harder. The trail twisted. Too sharply. It shouldn't have done that. I knew this path. I'd walked it in daylight, in rain, in fog. It never curved like this. The ground sloped downward, then upward again, stealing my breath. My legs burned. My chest felt too tight. Then I heard it laughing, softly, not mocking, not cruel. Practicing. The sound slipped in and out of something almost human, like it hadn't decided which emotion fit yet. I stumbled over a root and hit the ground hard. Pain exploded through my shoulder. My flashlight flew from my hand and rolled into the underbrush, the beam slicing wildly through the trees before settling on nothing useful. The footsteps stopped, so did the laughter. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then something warm brushed against the back of my neck. Breath. I didn't scream. I couldn't. Every instinct told me that sound was what it wanted. That noise was the invitation. Instead, I rolled and scrambled to my feet, running blind into the dark. The forest stopped making sense. Trees appeared where there hadn't been any a second before. Roots rose like fingers from the ground, grabbing at my boots. The trail vanished, then reappeared, then vanished again. I could hear myself crying, except my mouth wasn't open. The sound came from my right, matching my panic perfectly. Short, broken gasps, choked breaths. It was getting better. I burst through a stand of trees and almost ran straight into a drop-off. The ground fell away into a shallow ravine. I didn't remember being there. I skidded to a stop at the edge. Behind me, the sound of movement grew closer. Very close. I turned slowly. The thing stood just beyond the tree line, where the darkness was thickest. It didn't step forward, it didn't need to. My flashlight flickered back on suddenly, illuminating the space between us. What I saw wasn't a creature, it was wrongness. Like someone had taken pieces of different people and arranged them without understanding how they fit together. Too many angles, too many joints. Parts of it moved while others stayed perfectly still. Its head tilted, and in my own voice it said, "You don't sound like you did before." That's when I understood it wasn't hunting me. It was correcting me. I backed toward the ravine, my foot slipping on loose dirt. Stones rattled and fell, disappearing into the darkness below. The thing leaned forward slightly, interested. It opened its mouth, and every sound I'd made since. Entering the woods came out at once. My whistles, my breathing. My footsteps. My voice, layered, overlapping, wet. I turned and jumped. I don't remember hitting the bottom. I remember silence. I woke up to pain. Not sharp. Not sudden. The kind that settles into your bones and tells you you're still alive whether you want to be or not. I was lying on my side at the bottom of the ravine. My shoulder screamed every time I tried to move it, and my head felt full of wet sand. Above me, the trees leaned inward, their branches overlapping just enough to block most of the sky. It was still night. That alone didn't make sense. I didn't remember falling far enough for the drop to knock me out that long, and yet the darkness hadn't shifted. No hint of dawn, no change in temperature. I listened, nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, no whistle. For a moment, just a moment, I let myself believe I'd escaped, that the fall had confused it, that I was too broken to be worth the effort. Then I tried to stand. As soon as I put weight on my feet, the forest responded. A low sound rolled through the trees. Not a growl, not a voice, approval. The sound vibrated through the ground, through my legs, up into my chest. It wasn't coming from one direction. It was everywhere at once, like the woods themselves were acknowledging a decision. I froze. That's when I realized something else. I wasn't bleeding the way I should have been. My clothes were torn. My body hurt. But the cuts were shallow, clean, almost careful. The fall hadn't been meant to kill me. It had been meant to stop me. I limped forward, following the ravine as it curved gently through the trees. The ground there was softer, easier to walk on, like it wanted me to stay low, guided. As I moved, I started noticing things I hadn't before. Marks on trees, old ones, deep grooves carved into bark at about shoulder height. Always in the same pattern, 3 short lines, 1 long. I wasn't the first. The ravine widened ahead, opening into a small clearing I'd never seen before. In the center stood a dead tree, its trunk split down the middle like it had been struck by lightning years ago. Something was nailed to it. At first, I thought it was scraps of cloth. Then I got closer. Backpacks. Jackets. Pieces of gear. Weathered, faded. Some of them old enough that the fabric had almost dissolved into the wood itself. People had come here before, and they hadn't all made it out. I backed. Away slowly, my heart pounding, my breath shallow. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to scream, to do something. But the forest stayed quiet, patient. That's when it hit me. If it wanted me dead, I'd already be gone. Whatever lived here, whatever learned, didn't need bodies. It needed patterns. Voices. Movements. Behavior. It needed references. I was data. The realization made me nauseous. I turned, desperate to find a way out, and that's when I saw the trail. A clean, clear path leading up and out of the ravine. Wide, obvious, impossible to miss. It hadn't been there before. I stared at it for a long time, every nerve screaming that it was wrong. Behind me, something shifted in the trees. Not close. Not far. Waiting. I stepped onto the trail. The moment I did, the forest exhaled. And somewhere behind me, very softly, it whistled. Perfectly. I don't remember how long I walked. The trail didn't twist anymore. It didn't narrow or disappear. It stayed wide and obedient, like it wanted to make a good impression. The forest on either side felt distant. Not gone, just watching from behind glass. Eventually, the trees thinned. I saw the service road before I heard it, a pale stretch of gravel cutting through the dark like a scar. The moment my boots touched it, the sounds of the woods came rushing back all at once. Insects. Wind. Life. I fell to my knees and stayed there until the sun came up. When daylight finally broke through the trees, the mountains looked normal again, old, quiet, indifferent. I almost believed it had been an accident, a bad fall, a panic response, my mind trying to make sense of darkness. Almost. I went back 2 days later. I brought other people, locals, men who'd grown up there like I had, men who knew the rules. We followed my path as best we could, found the ravine, found the clearing. But the dead tree was gone. No gear. No markings. No trail. Just unbroken forest. They told me that was good. One of them wouldn't look me in the eye when he said it. Before we left, I walked a little deeper into the trees alone. I don't know why. Maybe I needed proof. Maybe I needed to know if it remembered me. That's when I found it. The tree closest to where my camp had been, fresh bark, pale and raw. Carved into it were 4 shallow lines, 3 short, 1 long. Exactly at shoulder height. I stepped back, my heart pounding, my mouth dry. From somewhere deep in the woods, I heard a sound. Not close. Not far. A whistle, imperfect. Just slightly off key, the way I used to do it. I left immediately. I moved away a month later. Different state, different job. Somewhere flat where trees don't lean in when it gets quiet. But every now and then, usually late at night, I hear it. Not outside. Inside my head, 3 short notes, a pause, 1 long note. I don't whistle anymore. And if you ever find yourself in the woods and you hear something that sounds like you, don't answer. Because sometimes the forest isn't calling for help. Sometimes it's checking its work. This story will tell us about a man who knew the Appalachian mountain roads far too well. About the night a familiar route showed him something that should not have been there, and about a light you should never follow, even when it looks like the only way out. I've driven those roads most of my adult life. If you've never been through the Appalachian Mountains at night, it's hard to explain what the dark feels like there. It's not empty. It's layered, like the night stacks itself between the trees. In 2020, I was working late deliveries. Same routes, same roads, same turns I could take without thinking. That night was no different. Just another drive cutting through the mountains, radio low, headlights carving a narrow tunnel through the dark. That's why I noticed it immediately. A light. Not on the road, not ahead of me, off to the right, deep between the trees. It wasn't bright, it didn't flicker. Just a steady, pale glow low to the ground, like a lantern someone had. Forgotten in the woods. People don't camp there. The road I was on didn't have pull-offs, no trails, no houses for miles. Just forest pressed tight against asphalt. I slowed down without realizing it. The light didn't move. I told myself it was reflection. Maybe a dropped reflector. Maybe someone's flashlight. Then another light appeared, a little farther back, a little deeper in the trees. Same color, same height. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. There's something you learn if you grow up around those mountains. Something people don't like to talk about because it sounds stupid when you say it out loud. Sometimes lights appear where they shouldn't. And if you see them, you don't stop. I kept driving. That's when the light began to move. Not toward the road. Parallel to me. Matching my speed. My chest went cold. I sped up. The light sped up too. Still between the trees. Still just far enough that I couldn't see what was holding it. Then, just ahead, a third light turned on. Waiting. The moment I realized the lights were keeping pace with me, I stopped thinking about explanations. No reflections move like that. No flashlight tracks a vehicle through trees without missing a step. I pressed harder on the gas. The road curved left, then right, the headlights dragging shadows across the forest. The lights stayed with me, sliding through the trees like they weren't slowed by branches or uneven ground. That's when I noticed something else. There was no sound. No footsteps. No snapping branches. Just motion, I glanced at the speedometer dot, 50-5. The lights matched it perfectly. My mouth went dry. I slowed down. The lights slowed down. 2. Not drifting, not lagging, stopping when I stopped. My truck rolled to a halt in the middle of the road. So did the lights. They hovered there between the trees, steady and patient, like they were waiting for me to make the next move. I sat there gripping the wheel, my heart pounding so hard it shook my vision. The engine idled, loud and alone in the silence. Then the light closest to the road shifted. It moved closer, not toward me, toward the edge of the asphalt. Close enough now that I could see it wasn't floating. It was being held. I couldn't see a hand, couldn't see an arm. Just the light, suspended at about waist height, swaying slightly, like someone breathing. Another light moved closer behind it, then another. They were lining up. I put the truck in reverse. The lights moved back with me. Still perfectly matched. I slammed it into drive and took off. The road ahead should have climbed toward the ridge. I knew that curve. Drove it every week. But instead, the asphalt leveled out, then narrowed. The yellow lines faded, then vanished entirely. My headlights reached farther than they should have. The trees pulled back, opening into a stretch of road that felt unfinished, like it hadn't decided what it was yet. The lights drifted closer. Now there were more of them, dots of pale glow slipping between trunks, appearing where I didn't remember seeing them seconds before. I felt boxed in. That's when the radio crackled. I hadn't touched it. A voice came through the static. Soft, strained. Help, please. The sound made my skin crawl. It wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from the woods. I slowed again, despite myself. The lights surged forward slightly, eager. The voice spoke again. Closer now. Car broke down. Can you stop? Every instinct screamed at me not to. There was a rule about that, too. The lights don't belong to people, and people who need help don't stand that still. I kept my foot on the gas. The voice sighed, disappointed. The road ahead dipped sharply, and for a split second, my headlights caught something I wasn't supposed to see. A shape, standing at the edge of where the road ended, waiting. I hit the brakes too late. The truck lurched forward, tires screaming as gravel replaced asphalt beneath them. The headlights washed over a stretch of road that simply stopped. No barrier, no sign, just a sudden drop where pavement gave way to dirt and darkness. I swerved hard and barely managed to bring the truck to a halt inches from the edge. My hands were shaking so badly I had to lock my elbows to keep them on the wheel. The engine idled. The lights behind me stopped, all of them. The forest felt closer here, pressed in. The trees leaned toward the open space like they were trying to see what would happen next. I looked ahead again. Someone was standing where the road ended, not down the slope, not at the side. Right where the asphalt should have continued, they were tall, too still. Their silhouette swallowed light instead of reflecting it, like the darkness had weight and chose that shape to settle into. A light hung near their chest, the same pale glow held steady. They didn't wave, didn't move, didn't speak. The radio crackled again. This time the voice was clearer. Please, it said. You stopped. The words felt wrong the moment I heard them. Not relieved, not desperate, observational. Like a note taken out loud. I shook my head and whispered to myself, no, 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 no. The figure tilted its head. The lights in the woods shifted in response, angling slightly, like an audience leaning forward. I put the truck in reverse. It didn't move. The engine revved. The tires spun uselessly, chewing. Into loose gravel, the truck rocked but went nowhere. The figure took a step forward. The sound of its foot touching the ground came a second too late. Out of sync, it raised an arm. I saw it then. The arm bent the wrong way in the middle. Not broken, designed that way. Like it had learned the idea of limbs from watching, not having them. The light lifted higher, closer to its face, and for just a second, I saw something behind it. More shapes, standing just beyond the reach of my headlights. Tall, uneven silhouettes, each with their own dim glow, watching silently from the tree line. Witnesses. The figure spoke again. "You're early," it said. My stomach dropped. People usually stop later. I slammed my foot on the gas. The truck surged forward with a violent jolt, shooting past the figure so close I felt a sudden pressure in my ears, like passing through a wall of thick air. The lights exploded into motion. They rushed alongside the truck, faster now, slipping. Between trees, appearing ahead, behind, above the slope. The road returned abruptly, pavement snapping back under my tires like nothing had ever been wrong. I didn't slow down. The voice followed me, not through the radio inside the cab. "You missed it," it said calmly, "but you'll remember where it is." The lights began to fall back one by one, slipping away into the forest. The last thing I saw before the road curved out of sight was the figure standing alone at the edge of the trees, still holding the light, still watching. I didn't stop driving until the sun was up. When daylight finally spilled over the mountains, the road looked harmless again. Cracked asphalt, faded lines, trees standing where they always had. No missing stretch, no drop dash off, no lights. I told myself it had been exhaustion, a trick of the dark, the kind of hallucination your brain plays when you've driven too long through empty places. That explanation lasted exactly one day. The next morning, I checked my truck. The front bumper was coated in fresh dirt and gravel, packed so tightly into the seams it looked like I'd driven off-road for miles. There were scrape marks underneath, long, shallow lines running parallel, like something had brushed against it repeatedly. I asked around, carefully. You learn how to do that in mountain towns. You don't ask questions directly. You tell stories and wait to see who goes quiet. When I mentioned the lights, an older man at the gas station stopped pumping and stared at the ground. "Did they follow you?" he asked. I nodded. He exhaled slowly through his nose. "Then they saw you." I asked him what they were. He shook his head. "Doesn't matter. What matters is they didn't take you." That word stuck with me. Take. He told me there used to be more accidents on those roads. Cars found abandoned, engines cold, doors open, no blood, no signs of a struggle. Just empty. Search parties would go out. They'd find tire tracks leading to places roads didn't exist, clearings that weren't on any map. And then, a few days later, those places wouldn't be there anymore. "They don't like witnesses," he said. "But sometimes they let one go." I asked why. He finally looked at me then. "So it can be remembered." That night I dreamed of the road ending, only this time I didn't stop. I drove straight into the dark, and the lights parted for me. I woke up with the smell of ozone in my nose and my hands clenched around. Nothing. I tried to avoid that stretch of road after that. Took longer routes. Burned more gas. Slept less, but avoidance doesn't mean escape. A week later, I saw the lights again, not in the mountains, in my rearview mirror. 3 of them. Low. Pale. Keeping their distance. Matching my speed. I didn't slow down. I didn't look directly at them. and after a few miles, they faded, like they'd confirmed something. That's when I understood the worst part. They weren't tied to the road. They were tied to me. I don't drive at night anymore, not unless I absolutely have to. And when I do, I keep the radio on. Loud, static music, voices, anything to make sure the silence doesn't get ideas. For a while, that worked. Weeks passed without seeing the lights again. Then months. I started to believe what everyone eventually believes, that if you survive something long enough, it loses interest. I was wrong. It happened on a straight road, flat, open, nothing but fields on either side. No mountains, no forests pressing in. That's why my stomach dropped when I saw the glow. One light at first, far back in the mirror, low to the ground, steady, I didn't slow down, another light appeared beside it. Then a third. They didn't move. Closer. They didn't need to. They already knew how fast I'd go. I focused on the road ahead. My hands locked on the wheel so tightly my fingers went numb. The radio crackled, the song warping, as if the signal was being stretched thin. For a moment, I thought I heard a voice in the static, not calling for help, just counting quietly. I took the next exit without signaling. The lights followed. I turned again, then again. Back roads, side streets, places I'd never been before. Every turn I made, they anticipated. They weren't following directions. They were following decisions. I pulled into a gas station just before dawn. Bright lights, people, noise. The moment I stopped, the glow vanished. I sat there for a long time after that, watching the mirror, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. A few days later, I sold the truck, moved again. Farther this time, I'd tell myself I'm safe now, that whatever they needed from me, they got the moment I didn't stop at the end of that road. But sometimes, usually when I'm half asleep, I remember the way the figure looked at me. Not angry, not disappointed. Curious. Like I was a variation. They hadn't finished testing yet. There's a rule where I'm from. If you see lights in the mountains that don't belong there, you keep driving. You don't slow down. You don't stop. You don't look back, because the lights aren't trying to guide you. They're checking whether you're ready to disappear quietly. And if you ever see them waiting at the end of the road, make sure you don't teach them anything new. This story will tell us about a house that did not exist on any map, about a man whose job was to document reality, and about the day reality refused to be documented. I work contract inspections. It's not interesting work. You drive out to rural properties, confirm addresses, take photos, note conditions. Half the time, the places are abandoned. The other half, people don't want to talk to you. You learn to trust paperwork more than memory. That's why this still bothers me. On March 14th, 2021, I was assigned a route through a sparsely populated area in the Appalachian foothills. 3 properties, all marked as long-term vacant, all previously inspected within the last 2 years. The second address didn't exist. At least, it wasn't supposed to. The GPS led me to a dirt road that narrowed until my tires were brushing weeds. No mailbox, no driveway marker, just trees. And a clearing that shouldn't have been there. In the middle of it stood a house. Single story. Wood siding. Neutral color. No visible damage. It looked finished. That was the first problem. Vacant houses don't look complete. They sag. They peel. They tell you they've been waiting. This one looked occupied by absence. I checked the address. Again. The number was nailed beside the door. Correct. I took photos from the road. Front, side, back. The timestamps were normal. The metadata was normal. Nothing about the house triggered. Alarms in my head. What did was the silence. No wind through broken windows. No insects. No animals. The clearing felt maintained, but not recently, like it reset itself instead of being tended. I walked closer. The porch boards didn't creak. The front door had no scratches around the lock. No signs of forced entry. Nowhere at all. I noticed the curtains then. They were drawn. Every window that wasn't in the report. Vacant properties are supposed to be open, stripped, exposed. This place was sealed. I should have left. That's not hindsight talking. That's procedure. If a structure doesn't match documentation, you flag it and move on. Instead, I stepped onto the porch. The air changed. Not temperature. Pressure. Like the house noticed I was now part of the record. I raised my phone to take another photo. That's when I saw something that made my stomach drop. The inspection sticker on the door frame got faded. Old, with my company's logo. Dated 9 years earlier. My name was on it. I stood on the porch for a full minute after seeing the sticker. I checked the date again, checked the logo, checked the handwriting. It was mine. Same block letters I've used since my first year on the job. Same slight slant on the last 2 letters of my last name. I compared it to a photo ID badge in my wallet. Match. That should not have been possible. I have no record of inspecting that address. No archived photos. No mileage logs. Nothing in the ein system. And yet the sticker was real. Sun-faded, cracked at the edges. Old enough that it should have been replaced twice by now. I took a photo of it. The phone hesitated before saving. Not freezing, just delaying, like it was trying to decide how to categorize the image. It saved normally. I noted the discrepancy verbally, as protocol requires, and reached for the door. It wasn't locked. That was the second problem. Vacant. Houses are usually secured. If they aren't, there are signs of forced entry. Broken locks. Splintered frames. This door opened cleanly. The smell inside wasn't mold or rot. It was dust. Dry. Fine. Undisturbed. The air was stale, but not abandoned. More like a room that had been closed deliberately. I stepped inside and closed the door. Behind me, the sound it made was wrong. Too solid. Too final. The entry was narrow. No personal items. No shoes. No coat rack. Bare walls painted an off-white that had yellowed unevenly, as if different sections had aged at different rates. The floorboards were worn, not damaged, worn in paths. Someone had walked here often. I took photos as I moved. Slow, methodical. Left wall, right wall, ceiling, floor. Everything was intact. Too intact. The furniture in the living room was arranged, but not lived in. Couch centered, table aligned. No dust patterns where objects had been moved. The television was old, box style, unplugged. On the wall behind it, there was a faint rectangular outline. Something had been removed. I noted that the kitchen was next. Empty cabinets, clean counters. No appliances except a refrigerator that hummed quietly when I passed it. I hadn't heard it until then. That bothered me. I opened it. Nothing inside. No shelves. No compartments. Just an empty white space that felt deeper than it should have been. I closed it carefully. That's when I noticed the hallway. It led farther back than the exterior dimensions of the house allowed. I knew the square footage from the file. I'd reviewed it that morning. This was longer. The carpet changed halfway down. Newer, thicker. The transition line was sharp, like a cut. The air smelled different past that point. Older. I stopped there and recorded another note. Interior dimensions do not match exterior footprint. My voice sounded wrong in the space. Not echoed dot absorbed dot at the end of the hallway was a closed door. Plain. Wooden. No markings. I don't remember deciding to open it. I remember my hand being on the knob. The room beyond was small. Windowless. Lit by a single ceiling bulb that buzzed. Faintly. Along the walls were shelves. On the shelves were binders. All identical. Gray. Labeled by year, not calendar years. Inspection cycles. I pulled the nearest one down. It was heavy. Inside were photos. Properties. I recognized. Some I remembered inspecting. Some I didn't. Each entry was thorough. Exterior shots. Interior shots. Notes. Names. Dates. Signatures. Mine. I flipped faster. The handwriting deteriorated the further back I went. Less precise, more rushed, but always recognizably mine. The oldest binder on the shelf was brittle with age. The first page inside had a photo clipped to it. A house. In a clearing. Taken from the road. From the same angle I'd used that morning. I looked at the TIMESTAMP. It was dated tomorrow. I sat on the floor with the binder in my lap. I didn't open another one right away. I needed to confirm something. First, I checked the photo again. The one dated tomorrow. Zoomed in on the metadata. Cross-checked the file number with the one on my phone. The numbering system matched ours. That meant the image hadn't been added later. It had been created inside the same structure that governed my actual work files. That shouldn't be possible. Offline, I opened the binder. The first section was standard, address, coordinates, notes on access, condition. Then came the photographs. Interior. Shots. Not just rooms. People. Standing in kitchens. Sitting on beds. Leaning in doorways. Every photo was taken the same way. Straight on, neutral framing, no artistic angle. The way inspections require. None of the people looked directly at the camera. They weren't blurred. They weren't distorted. They were compliant. I recognized two of them. One had been reported missing 3 years earlier. I remembered the notice because his car had been found a mile from where I'd taken photos of a condemned structure. The report said possible exposure. Another was a woman whose case never made the news. I knew her because I'd inspected her property after foreclosure. She'd left in a hurry, clothes still in the closets. I flipped pages, more faces, some old, some recent. The notes were concise, detached, occupant present, condition acceptable, no resistance observed. I turned to the back of the binder. There was a final page, blank except for a checklist. All boxes were marked except one. Disposition. I put the binder back and pulled. Another. Different year. Same structure. More people. Different handwriting style. In the notes, but still mine. The phrasing evolved over time. Early entries were cautious, questioning. Later ones were procedural, efficient. Like I'd learned what mattered and stopped writing down the rest. That's when I noticed the gaps. Some inspection cycles were incomplete. A year would stop halfway. Through. No conclusion. No disposition. I checked the names in those binders. Those were the ones still listed as missing. I stood up slowly. The room felt smaller now. Not physically, functionally, like its purpose had narrowed. I heard a sound behind me. Not footsteps. Paper shifting. I turned. Another binder sat on the shelf where there hadn't been one before. Newer. Clean. Its label wasn't a year. It was my name. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The house had already documented me. Every photo I'd taken that day was there. printed, filed, placed in sequence.exterior.porch.door.sticker. The last photo showed the hallway, taken from behind me. I checked my phone. That photo wasn't on it. I recorded one final note out loud. There is no evidence of forced retention. Subjects appear to remain voluntarily. The words felt borrowed, learned, the light in the room flickered once. Not a warning, a confirmation. I left the binder on the shelf. That felt important, like taking it would count as acceptance. I backed out of the room slowly, keeping my eyes on the shelves and the labels. On my name printed too cleanly to be handwritten. The hallway was shorter. On the way back. Not by much. Maybe a step or two, but enough that I noticed. The carpet transition was gone. The newer section blended seamlessly into the older one, as if it had always been that way. I checked my phone again. Still working. Signal low, but present. Battery draining faster than normal. Recorded timestamps every few minutes after that. Not for the report. For myself. The living room looked unchanged, but something was off. The couch cushions were INDENTED. Freshly. Two places. The shelves were still missing, but there was something else now. A clipboard. Standard inspection issue. Plastic cover. Metal clip. My handwriting on the top page. A checklist. Most of it was already filled out. Foundation. Stable. Structure. Sound. Occupancy. Pending. I didn't remember writing that. I heard movement upstairs. That was impossible. There was no second floor. The sound wasn't footsteps. It was slower, heavier, like furniture being repositioned carefully. I realized then what the house was doing. It wasn't luring people. It was maintaining itself. Empty. Houses decay. Occupied houses persist. People weren't being taken. They were being assigned. I moved toward the front door. The handle turned, but the door didn't open. No resistance. No lock. Just refusal. Behind me. The sound upstairs stopped. I didn't turn around. The clipboard in my hand vibrated slightly, like a phone on silent. A new box had been added at the bottom of the page. Replacement required. Unchecked. I understood then why some binders ended early, why some cycles never closed. Those were the times no suitable replacement had been found. The house had waited. I forced the door again. This time it opened. The clearing outside looked the same, but the light was wrong. Flat, overexposed. My truck was still there. That mattered more than anything. As I stepped off the porch, I felt it, a pressure behind my eyes. Not pain. Expectation. The house didn't chase me. It didn't need to. I was already documented. All it had to do was wait and see if I'd complete the process somewhere else. When I reached the truck, my phone buzzed. One new photo, taken from the tree line of me. Walking away. I didn't file the report. I drove until the road turned back into pavement, until my phone signal stabilized, until the trees stopped crowding the shoulders. I told myself that if I didn't submit anything, the cycle wouldn't close. That assumption was incorrect. 2 days later, the address disappeared from the system. Not flagged. Not archived. Deleted. Every reference to it, the assignment, the coordinates, the inspection history was gone. Even my mileage log adjusted itself, as if I'd never taken that road. I checked my phone. All photos from that day were missing, except one, the last one, the one taken from the tree line, of me walking away. The metadata said it was captured at 3:17 p.m. At that exact time, I'd been driving on the highway. I have a receipt to prove it. I took the photo to a colleague I trusted. Didn't explain where it came from. just asked if it looked altered. He studied it for a long time. Then he asked me a question I still think about. Why does it look like you're trying not to run? A month passed, then another. I started seeing the house in places it didn't belong, not physically, in paperwork. A familiar address format that didn't resolve on maps. A property description that reused phrasing I recognized as my own. Once, I found an inspection sticker in my glove compartment, blank. I quit the job after that, I moved. Changed routines. Stopped driving back roads, it didn't matter because the house isn't a location, it's a solution. When something can't be accounted for, a person, a gap, a loss that doesn't fit, it gets filed somewhere. The house is where it gets stored, I know this because last week I found a new binder in my apartment hallway, it was leaning against the wall like a package, gray. Unmarked, inside was a single page, my name, today's date, and a checklist, all boxes filled. Except 1. Disposition. Unchecked. I haven't opened my door since. I don't know if that helps, but if this gets found, if this recording gets passed along, then the house hasn't finished its work yet. That might buy me time, and if you ever come across a building that doesn't appear on any map but already knows your name, don't go inside, not because it's dangerous, because it's already deciding where to file you. Those were 3 stories from Scary Stories channel. No conclusions. No answers. Just fragments. The kind that remain after something has already been documented, filed, and quietly closed. If these stories felt unfinished, that's intentional, because in cases like these, the record usually ends long before the event does. Thank you for listening. And remember, if something feels like it's already been expecting you, you're probably not the first to notice it.